Number 71, stand when you are able, and let us joyously sing together. I celebrate joy, I celebrate joy within my soul, I celebrate joy, and knowing that God is in control, I celebrate joy. I celebrate joy and unity, Spirit is alive in me. I celebrate love, I celebrate love within my soul. I celebrate love, and knowing that God is in control. I celebrate love, and knowing that Spirit sets me free. I celebrate love. Alive in me. I celebrate hope. I celebrate hope within my soul. I celebrate hope, and knowing that God is in control. I celebrate hope, and knowing that Spirit sets me free. I celebrate hope and unity. Spirit is alive in me. I celebrate hope and unity, Spirit is alive in me. Tinkle those ivories, Rick. That's lovely, thank you.
Good morning, that was beautiful. Welcome. Let's remember to set our phones on meditate. We have any visitors today? Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're glad to have you. Excellent. Well, that's all for you. It's a special Sunday. We're going to have Melanie reading for us, and we've got Randy and Marion with us today for music. And we're going to hear from members of our congregation telling us how the church affected them. So that's going to be very special. Ann and Bob and Rick are going to speak. So, with that said,
Melanie.
Thank you. Melanie's going to read to us.
Yeah, I'm great.
Good morning, church family.
Good morning.
Good morning. If we form the perfect idea of divine humanity, perceiving all as one, knowing that there is nothing lacking morally, mentally, or spiritually, we shall manifest power over our external conditions. That's pretty powerful if you think about it. And reveal more and more of the life which we live until we express harmony divine. There is no standard but God. Hence, whatever He is should be our guide for thought, word, and deed. We act and we know that He is life, love, and power, knowledge, health, perfection, success, and all that we can conceive to be good. To be free from experiences contrary to this good, we must think in accordance with these inherent attributes. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, these we think on. Our first hymn is going to be number 75. They'll know it and believe it, verses 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you.
Good morning. We have an abridged and shortened version of our normal service. But today we are going to start out reading our statement of being, and you can find it in your orders of service if you read with me. God is all, both invisible and visible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I am the individualized expression of God, and am ever one with His perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance.
It's always so cool how divine order just takes place, because we don't always know what the theme of the service is going to be, but the music somehow always ends up fitting. So I hear that you're going to have members of your congregation share with this church and what each other has meant to you. And that's kind of what this song is about. Think about people in your lives that have touched you and have actually helped you transform just by their actions, by their words, by their being there for you. And then take that one step farther and think that you could be that someone for someone else. So that's the name of the song I wrote. It's called I Could Be That Someone. Someone stood beside me when others walked away. Someone cheered me up. They knew just what to say. Someone held their arms out to catch me if I fell. I could be that someone for somebody else. Someone took the time to help me work it out. Someone gave me faith to overcome my doubt. Someone cared enough to ask me how I felt. I could be that someone for somebody else. What I say and what I do makes a difference. I can choose, oh, I can choose. Someone took my hand when I had lost my way. Someone helped me out when I had no way to pay. Someone gave me courage to do it myself. I could be that someone for somebody else. I could be that someone for somebody else.
Now's the time for our healing meditation. May we all be that someone to someone else. Father, Mother God, in our healing meditation, sometimes, Father, in life we've skinned our knees, or our heart has been broken, or we found out we have a disease or illness. Oftentimes, Father, our bodies can, over time, heal itself, but sometimes maybe a chronic illness comes our way. And when all this happens, the healing balm to our very heart the very healing balm to free our mind and to give our heart hope is that knowledge that you are omnipresent, that you are omnipotent. In Isaiah 41 it said, I am your Lord and God. I will take your right hand. Do not fear. I am with you. And that is where we lay our trust. That is our healing balm, the outstretched hand of our loving Mother, Father God, this divine spirit, this divine love. Thank you for the healing of body and spirit, Father. In these next 90 seconds, I invite you to go within, in your own quiet solitude of thankfulness, gratitude, and prayer. Starting now. Thank you, Father, for the rest, for the healing, for the gratitude that we have in our heart. Thank you for the blessings of this, our country. Bless our nation, our leaders, our armed forces everywhere. And we know that your will be done. And it is so. Amen. Now we're going to have our various speakers, and I believe we're going to start with Ann.
Morning.
Good morning.
I came to this church from an invitation of a friend. As my time at Valley Community Church has continued, I have found a family. I found love. I found acceptance. I found like-minded people. They may not be my biological family, but in some ways, I find I am better understood here than any other time in my life. I grew up a poor country girl in Wisconsin. My religious upbringing was Catholic. My parents were devout Catholics, and as a family attended Mass every Sunday and Holy Day. Catholicism never seemed to fit. I was never comfortable with it until at the age of 16 I met a priest in Milwaukee. He believed in a loving God, a person's good, and did not believe in hell. Sounds a little bit like divine science. Then this priest I looked up to and admired broke our friendship, and we never regained the closeness we once had. I trusted this individual very much, perhaps too much, and felt very betrayed. He was the one who performed Bob and my wedding ceremony, but only after Bob signed a paper stating he would see that any children we had would be raised in the Catholic faith. Fast forward, after our daughter was born in Milwaukee, and then our son in South Carolina, we moved numerous times because of Bob's career. I always followed willingly along until we settled for 12 years in Cary, Illinois. It was in Cary, and after a friend had committed suicide, that my priest friend tried to reach out to me. I still was not prepared to forgive him, and I would not accept his gesture. The following year, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. After the first year of battling my diagnosis, I decided it was time to forgive my priest friend. When I finally tracked him down, I was told he had committed suicide a year earlier. It was too late to make amends with him. I spent a great deal of time in and out of the hospital for my depression the 12 years we spent in Cary. My original psychiatrist over-medicated me, and when that did not work, he performed ECT. By the time I finally went to Northwestern Hospital in Chicago and found a doctor who helped me, I had lost valuable years of enjoying my life with my children. When I was home with them, I was never really present. In 2003, rather than dealing with the empty nest syndrome, we moved to California and left our children in Illinois. Our son soon decided he too wanted to enjoy sunny California and joined us out west. Our last and final move brought us to Roanoke, where we planned to stay. Originally, I tried various churches, several of them as a matter of fact. None of them seemed to fit. While working at a laundromat, excuse me, in town, I talked about my dilemma in not being able to find a church I was comfortable with. Laurel was a customer and suggested I try her church. She explained some of the principles, and it sounded like a church I would be interested in. One Sunday, I came at Laurel's invite, and I have been here several years now. I sit in my same seat every Sunday unless I am performing some other duty. I came at the invite of a friend, and I have found a family in all of you. Each Sunday, as we recite our statement of being, I feel the power in those words. I am an individualized expression of God. God is omnipresent. God is everywhere, in me, in you, in the sanctuary, and beyond. God is not sitting on a throne above me, keeping track of my sins as I was once led to believe. I did not know the good that existed in me until I embraced a new way of thinking. God is good, therefore I have good. I possess good. Each one of us who attend Valley Community are on our own spiritual path, each learning the principle and practice of divine science at our own speed we are comfortable with. I have grown a great deal on my own spiritual journey since coming to the church. Others have noticed a change in me since my earlier years, yet I still know I have a long way to go. In my earlier upbringing, attending Sunday service always felt like a chore. With divine science, I eagerly await Sunday service. My mind is like a sponge, ready to soak up the message given each week. I sit in the sanctuary, and those words which are spoken always seem to be addressing me and my needs. Okay. I think, okay. Sorry about that.
You're all right.
Yeah, I'm not steady. I'm not steady.
I got you.
Okay, got me? Okay. I have learned to live in the moment rather than looking backward or to the future. I live with gratitude for all I have. Each morning I awake to knowing I have a clean slate in which to know God's inheritances, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, power, life, joy, and love. I still have much to learn on my spiritual journey, but I have wonderful teachers and family to learn with. This is my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Brother Bob is next.
Isn't there a third person? I think, well, the computer's still thinking,
Oh,
and he has a PowerPoint, so could you, Rick, go next? Bob, sit down.
Rick, that is your
Sorry.
I think it's amazing how virtually any one of us can stand up here and talk about our experience and find very positive and substantial things to say. You'll hear some of the same things from me that you've heard from me and some of the same words. It's amazing. And I have a feeling Bob will have some of the same words. I went to an ethics seminar recently. Ethics is not usually a fun subject to study. And the instructor made a surprise statement early in the training. It's an all-day webinar seminar, web-based seminar. He said, "I'm not going to teach you anything new today." And I thought, pardon my language, I thought, what the hell am I doing? Spending all this money and taking all this time to do this, you're not going to teach me anything new. But he went on to say, you already know this. Most of it you already know. You've heard before and you know it. I'm going to review some things and put some things in front of you. And I feel like that's much the same as we do here, or that I'm going to do today. I'm really not going to tell you anything new, but I want to tell you some things about my experience and share some observations with you. I'd like to pick up on Reverend Marita's theme from last week. She spoke about stories. Do you remember her talking about stories? The stories that we learn, the stories that we acquire in our lives, the stories that other people tell us about ourselves that help us to define ourselves. Not long ago, I had occasion to watch a Netflix special by Brene Brown called A Call to Courage. Anybody know Brene Brown? Have you seen this special called A Call to Courage? Wonderful special. You're familiar with TED Talks. This is like an hour and a quarter long TED Talk. She's very warm, in front of a warm and inviting audience. I describe it as part informational. She's instructing and she's teaching. It's part research because she talks about her research and research findings. And it's several parts stand-up comedy. So it's very fun and accessible. She invokes this phrase in giving her talk that is straight out of cognitive therapy. It's out of what's called narrative approach, which has to do with the stories that we experience. And the phrase is, she says, I'm paraphrasing here, she says, I'm going through this thing in my life and I'm experiencing these things, and the story I'm telling myself is, the story I'm telling myself about this is. These are the stories that we tell ourselves. And so often these stories are not particularly life-giving. They're not helpful, they're not healthy, they're painful. So often they involve concepts like victim, or loss, or loser, or deficit of some kind. They're not life-giving stories. We want our stories to be life-giving. In my case, the stories that I tell myself aren't as harsh as some that I've encountered. I think we've all met people who have been through some awful things and have learned to tell themselves really painful stories. Mine are not that bad. They've gotten better. They're getting better as I stay here and worship here and hear a message week to week. The stories become more and more positive. I find myself reflecting on more consistently on positive themes, some of the same concepts that Ann was talking about. I'll tell you about some of those as we go along. Well, some of that comes right out of our statement of being. When we just said a moment ago, I'm indeed ever one with one presence, one mind, one power. This perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. Perfect is not a standard that I would normally embrace. It's one that I've tended to move away from in my life because it sets us up, for me anyway, it sets us up for difficulty and pain, failure. We fall short of perfection in our humanity. In a spiritual sense, though, perfect makes sense. The Spirit, as it is expressed in us and as us, is perfect, even as it includes our human imperfections. There is perfection in divine order, divine orchestration. I frequently find myself contemplating this perfection at the wee hours of the morning, somewhere between 2 and 4. That's a.m. I don't know why. I'm awake. Don't particularly want to be, but there I am. The sleep experts say don't lie there awake, get up after half an hour or so and do something else for a while until you feel sleepy. But I don't tend to do that because I think it just wakes me up more, so I stay put. And I'll begin to contemplate these truths, these principles that we hold near and that we speak about each week. I'll reflect on the gift that life is with excitement that I continue to be a part of it, that I get to live it and experience it. Gratitude for the wisdom and the perspective that I'm accumulating. Awe at the power that works through me. My words more and more include words and phrases like wholeness and vitality and infinite intelligence and divine order and divine perfection. Dwelling in the expansive wholeness of God is one of the phrases that I've acquired and I like to repeat to myself as something of a mantra. I find myself speaking more often about truth and truths. Truths are enduring principles that are the same now as they were 2,000 years ago. They withstand the test of time and they are true across all situations. The notion of earth as a school, the idea of learning lessons, that life is about learning lessons and learning lessons doesn't stop. It continues throughout our life. Other truths we encounter, the grass looks greener on the other side, but it's, as my dad used to say, it's just as hard to mow. In a relationship, this is one truth, by the way, that I've come to appreciate. In a relationship, you can't win over the other party. You can't win over the other person. If you win over the other person, you both lose. We recognize these as truth. Your neighbor is your other self dwelling behind a wall, Khalil Gibran. The truth that we are, each of us at our core, perfect likenesses of God, with all his goodness, beauty, wisdom, power, and love, straight out of our website, the Valley Community Church Divine Science website. Thank you, Reverend Marita, for that one. The individualized expression of God, another phrase from our statement of being. Increasingly, as we progress along our paths, we're able to recognize and appreciate the beauty and the grace of each moment, of each day, the beauty in each moment. We have encounters with humility and surrender. Surrender is not weakness or loss, says spiritual writer Marianne Williamson. It's a powerful non-resistance through openness and receptivity on the part of human consciousness. Spirit is allowed to infuse our lives to give them meaning and direction, sometimes at 2 a.m. And this accumulated wisdom, divine science minister Dr. Joseph Murphy, the power of the subconscious mind, said age is not the flight of years, it's the dawn of wisdom. Your gray hair should indicate wisdom and emotional maturity. Mark Twain had a different take on age and wisdom. Do you know that? Mark Twain said, wisdom comes with age, but I've learned sometimes age comes alone. The words of all of our ministers and our speakers, thank you, Doug, each week bring us back to this path, back to these spiritual principles. We value them, these principles, and our speakers, our ministers. Yet it really makes sense to me, as we're seeing today, that anyone in this church can come and speak and find substance, find health, spiritual health, something to say. We return, as we gather, we return to the stories of our lives, Dr. Murphy again spoke of using words that bless, heal, and inspire. Words that elevate and dignify the soul. I like that. Elevate and dignify the soul. We stand up straighter when we hear words that tell ourselves that that tell ourselves stories that elevate and dignify our souls. Sort of like lift and separate. Do you remember that ad campaign? You. So I wanted to share with you what's happening within me. Mm-hmm.
It was a brawl commercial, Rick.
I'm trying to be discreet here.
Well, I'm not, so that's okay.
The experience stands, it's good. Yeah, but you're not. Story of Nancy, isn't it? So I'm talking to you about my experience. I want to draw attention to your parallel experience of growth and transformation, including the role that you're each taking in shaping your own storyline. What are the stories you're telling yourselves? I invite you as well to look at your stories and revise them to make them more consistent with the very clearly positive and life-giving messages that we get here on a regular basis, the truths that we learn here. Put your shoulders back for a moment and breathe and connect your feet with the earth. Lengthen your spine. Feel the uplift of the truth of this moment. I am a child of infinite wisdom. At the center of my being is the peace of the divine presence. Hold on to that experience. Take it with you. The divine source is expressing itself through me right now as health, beauty, and perfection. It's present in every cell of my body. It only knows loving unfoldment. I dwell in its expansive wholeness. Can your stories pass the playtext test? See to it that your stories elevate and dignify your soul.
Now, Nancy.
Sure, but you're gonna have to memorize it. I hope you got papers. Computer is like totally like
Can't see no pretty pictures.
nothing. It won't even, I can't even get the,
I don't want to.
really? You brought paper with you though, I saw them.
Yeah, but not the pictures.
God loves a plan. Well, it could be a really short service. I'm sorry, it just, Jan can't get to turn, it won't even bring up
Jan
the
said
turn
it
on.
wouldn't be like this.
Did she say that? Well, she lied. We're not supposed to lie, but she did. What happens when she tells me not to come over?
And after I was going to compliment Jen on this first page. Anyway, Jan told me she would turn the mic off if I wandered on too long. So if I go dead, you know it's time for me to sit down. And also, I know several of you really shudder when I bring up the word haiku. But haiku is something that I think represents all of us. Anyway, today I hope to show you haiku as part of my working to realize the Christ mind within me. In fact, haiku I've written recently, I don't think I use the same words without help. So the Lord and I may be co-authoring these. But most important, let me digress a minute. May I take a moment and thank you all for your support during my most recent awkwardness. Especially Ann and Bob Dieter, Martha, Doug, who's carried me around the Greenway several times, Jan, Catherine, my daughter Stephanie Lynn and her husband. You all know nothing happens around here without Jan. Thanks, Jan, my good friend. And Catherine, we went to different schools together. She has saved my life several times. Just the truth. And the other evening, a friend of mine and I bumped into Deuteronomy. And I probably could read this verse and then just sit down. I think it's better than what I'm going to tell you. But this is Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong, be brave, fear not, be not terrified of them. For it is the eternal your God who goes with you. He will never forsake you. In addition to my words, I have some quotes, so since I can't show you the pictures.
So, okay, I'm sorry.
And I'm not sure who said this to begin, but rudeness is the weak man's imitation of strength. I thought that was kind of nice. But now to me, I don't remember much of what I'm going to tell you. What I will attempt through several scenes from the past is to create for you the understanding of my futile attempts to understand myself. These slides, they're confusing, but the haiku, which the slides show, illustrate expressions of the spark of life, the Christ mind we all carry, though may never realize. Living in the embrace of this community, the veil is parted, the visible is seen for what it is, and the invisible, the spiritual beings, we are emerging. And in one of Marita's first classes, she said, or someone said, if you take care of the inside, the outside will take care of itself. Now more of me. I wish I had read Greek mythology when I was little. According to Greek mythology, humans were originally created with 4 arms, 4 legs, and a head with 2 faces. Fearing their power, Zeus split them into 2 separate parts, condemning them to spend their lives in search of their other halves. If they had told me when I was in the 1st grade, that would explain why I always thought a part of me was missing. God was out there somewhere. Even though Jesus saved everyone, there were still those confused folks who said we were all damned and needed to be saved. Baptized at 9, I walked out of church, my chest puffed out, thinking, okay, I'm not damned anymore. Let's see if I can find the rest of me. My dad told me to read the Bible. He gave me a small New Testament. Read the Bible, he said. My mother wondered why I wasn't as smart as my brother. When he graduated from high school at 15 and 30 days later was enrolled at Indiana University, I think she thought it was my fault. But that's another story. Then another, this is from Eric Hoffer. It seemed like I remember him from the 60s. He must have written something. But his statement, the search for happiness is one of the chief sources of unhappiness. I think that proved to me. My schooling was uncomfortable. The lunch periods were so long, standing in the halls. I started sitting in the library and reading. Miss Powell, the librarian and senior English teacher, was a tall, red-headed, scary woman. She sat at her desk and ate little crackers with cheese spread on them and washed down with some steaming liquid from her thermos. One day she looked down her nose at me, tall lady with her glasses perched at the end of a skinny nose, and said, "You're Tom Brooks's brother, aren't you?" And yes, ma'am. After that lengthy exchange, I would find books on the table where I usually sat at lunch. Read these. What's your name again? Bob, isn't it? I was a freshman. I read, and Miss Powell asked me questions for the next 4 years. But all the reading did not help me find myself. The self I was seeking, I decided, was the side who would be able to talk to people and have friends and not tell anybody they were smart. The young minister at the church we attended tried to mix psychology and Presbyterianism. Even at 13, I thought that was really weird. My mother would talk about him on the way home from church. Dad would listen. All of a sudden, I was 16, 1 year of high school left. And this is from Nelson Mandela, a very, I think, religious man. Do not judge me by my successes. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up. Somewhere in 1968, I found myself at the edge of Huntington High School's campus. A light rain begins whispering in the trees. A mist washes over my face. The moisture reminds me of Dr. Carpenter baptizing me when I was 9. Rachel was cutting her evening class. She sneaks out through the gymnasium. I begin to drift. Have to be careful. The amphetamine I take horrifies Rift, but lack of it leaves me a withered bush hanging on a fence, dying of thirst. The green and clear capsule is my lover. I am not sure nor care which one of us, the dexedrine or me, is the prostitute. Twilight blurs the surroundings in the rain as the darkness falls. The echo of the door banging and the shadow dashing from the building becomes Rachel. Hiding under her skeletal umbrella, she digs Masters of the Universe. Rachel's an artist. She exhibits a freedom I wish I had. Sometimes she takes my hand and I wish I was whole again. We met in the East End soup kitchen. She was serving and I was eating. Now we head for the underground coffee house by Marshall's campus to listen to open mic of indescribably ununderstandable poetry in Frank Zappa's new album. And as a representation, the Lord and I looked at that night, which was important to me, and this is the first haiku I think I ever wrote. Cool night, it's up here. My friend, cool night, my friend rain falls inside my coat to keep warm. My inadequacies kept me a solitary person. When I grew close to someone, I would push them away. My ego and I would celebrate by reading Asian thought and thinking we were so intelligent. Of course, my ego was me. Delving into philosophy and religion, my ego fooled me into thinking I was practicing knowledge of the world with a simple scanning of books by possibly questionable authors. But I felt my head would lead me to the source. I was strangely wrong. My ego straightened, though, and I replaced sadness and confusion with anger. I quit college and got a job in a bottling plant. The guy who mixed the syrup was an alcoholic chef. He usually lasted a month when he tried to work in the kitchen. As our evenings turned into morning, he taught me how to drink bourbon. And as the dawn showed, his hands trying to quieten each other, he would lean over and slobber in my ear. Tell me some more of those 50-cent words you use. God's omnipresence was blossoming in my haiku. And at that period of time, haiku, the night surrounds me. Her wintry embrace wakes me. Spring sun, a memory. And here is just a beautiful slide. Representing my mind at the time. Anyway. And as that wasn't a sad time, it was just an interesting time, as the Chinese say. Can't afford to stay, I wrote this haiku. I can't look anymore. Can't afford to stay. Silence is much too expensive. Beauty all too sad. When I first came to church here and I saw that sign in the annex, I said, I can never be quiet. They'll never let me stay here. But silence is the word. And this would comfortably numb. Cold yesterday, snow today, things just as they are. And from Confucius, what the superior man seeks is in himself. What the small man seeks is in others. And probably the best statement in my little talk is from Miss Kramer, when she says, nothing is grander than genuine simplicity. If we could uncomplicate everything, I think we would be there. And then this from perhaps another gentleman. I've cleaned it up as best I could. The trouble with my generation is that we all think we're effing geniuses. I think that's still true. Okay. Flat, straight Midwest road, another haiku. Two noble trees embrace in front of a church. Am I over yet, Jan?
Oh, you got time, go
Okay.
ahead.
And this is about Susie. I'm in a different city. Walking out of an alley, I turn and see this emaciated little girl. Long blonde hair, a dress 2 sizes too big, the hem of a wrinkled slip peeking out from under her dress. Her legs are covered by Alice in Wonderland tights, numerous pulls and rips decorating the stockings. Her little feet are standing in a large pair of men's wingtips. She is gazing up at a suit, her hands on his arm, her pregnant stomach pressed against his side. I can't hear what he's saying, what she's saying. Her gaze drops and a tear, escaping from her eye, slides down her dirty cheek. The man lifts her chin with one hand, a fatherly expression warming his face. The other hand goes in his pocket, bringing out a money clip. He places bills in her tiny hand, folding the hand over the cash as if to keep it from escaping. She looks up, a forlorn smile on her face, as her right hand smoothly slips his wallet from his back pocket as she deposits it in her shopping bag. Susie, more than anyone I met, led me through the quagmire I had created. She was the queen of grifters, the empress of hustlers, perhaps the only virgin on the streets. I can't think of any other fancy words. She knew I was watching her. The suit hurried on in the other direction while Susie ambled down the street. "How'd I do?" she said. "I think you're amazing," I said. "When is your baby due?" She pulled me into the alley, stepped back, and when she lifted her dress, revealing a backpack she carried on her belly instead of her back. I laughed, I'll be damned. She looked me up and down. She said, "You know, with you as a big brother taking care of little tiny sister, we could make twice as much." I agreed. I'm not sure how long we were together. Susie worked 4 different block sections. Downtown was too rough. We shared stories of being beat up. I told her I had hurt some people. She smiled, I wanted to. Before dark, Susie divvied up our money between the regulars on the particular block we were working. We got takeout and settled into a lean-to she had constructed behind a dumpster. We embraced and covered up with an old army blanket. I woke up during the night and heard her mumbling, "Just sharing the day with God. Go back to sleep." The day came when we had worked her streets too often. "You gotta go." "I have to? You don't belong here." I was silent. "I have to reinvent myself and stay so I can take care of the people," she said. Susie gave me a wad of money from her backpack. "Take a shower, get some clothes from the Army-Navy store, and take a bus home." My impression of Susie was modest, gentle rose, veiled amidst the chatting weeds, winks at the villain. She was quite a creature. I hope she's still alive. And then here with you all, I think this came up in one of our classes when we talked about silence. And the roar of silence, the first line, breathes eternal words in the singing winds. I think that's one of the better ones. And then a musician friend of mine thinks this is the best of one that the Lord and I have written. Worshipping knowledge snuffs the candle of wisdom, pretending the dark is light. And then I've read several other times, and this is the favorite. People say, well, read that again, read that again. So here it is. Sensing my hunger, the waitress fed my ego before I ordered. Thank you.
Well, like Rick said, I think anybody could get up here and we'd all find something just fascinating in what they have to share. Well, this song is about the roar of silence, and it's by Albert Brumley, who's most famous for writing I'll Fly Away, which is the most recorded gospel song ever written. And this one I think is just as good. It's called Turn Your Radio On. So what that means, the radio is our connection to God, and we turn it on by going into silence. We go into our prayer closet, tune out all the distractions, and we make a connection with God, and we can all do it. Come and listen to a radio station where the mighty host of heaven sing. Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
If you want to hear the songs of Zion coming from the land of endless spring, get in touch with God.
Get in touch with God.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
And listen to the music in the air. Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Heaven's glory share.
Heaven's glory share.
Turn the lights down low.
Turn the lights down low.
And listen to the Master's radio. Get in touch with God.
Get in touch with God.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Come and listen to the glory chorus. Listen to the glad hosannas roll. Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Get a little taste of joy waiting. Get a little heaven in your soul. Get in touch with God.
Get in touch with God.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
And listen to the music in the air. Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Heaven's glory share.
Heaven's glory share.
Turn the lights down low.
Turn the lights down low.
And listen to the Master's radio. Get in touch with God.
Get in touch with God.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Listen to the songs of father and mother and the many friends gone on before. Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Some eternal morning we shall meet them on the hallelujah shore. Get in touch with God.
Get in touch with God.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
And listen to the music in the air. Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Heaven's glory share.
Heaven's glory share.
Turn the lights down low.
Turn the lights down low.
And listen to the Master's radio. Get in touch with God.
Get in touch with God.
Turn your radio on.
Turn your radio on.
Before we move forward, I'd like one of our longtime members, EJ, to share something that she wanted to share with us. You want us to hear turn and sit?
I'm not too steady standing, so I will sit. But I sit here listening to you all, and it amazes me. I've been here 25 years. And it's been a wonderful experience. I'm originally from Southwest Missouri. I'm an Shomi. I was born in the Ozarks, so I love the mountains. That's what brought me here. I grew up in Peoria, Illinois. Get her a microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me hold it for you.
But I grew up in a little town just south of Peoria, in the flatlands, which I will never go back to willingly. I love these mountains, but I went through school, etc., all of that, and I was brought up in a very, what I thought was a very religious home. We went through the actions, but it wasn't deep down. We went to Salvation Army. We went to the Nazarene Church also. We went to church on Sunday morning. You went to church on Sunday, no matter what, unless you were very, very sick. You went to church on Sunday. And I can, I was happy. And I was going and doing well at school. I'm the oldest of the 4 girls. I first wanted to leave home. My mother did not want. I got a job. I went to the National Business College. Got a job with the government at the age of 19. And came to D.C. in September of 1964. And I worked for the government for a few years. And I was going to work until I was 21, and I was going to get on the embassy list to work overseas. I didn't quite make it overseas. I met a Marine and got married instead. And we had 2 daughters. 2 daughters now, 4 grandchildren. And I didn't, once I left home and went to D.C., I dropped out of church. I didn't go to church. I had other things to do on Sunday, more important things, I thought, at the time. And I had joined the American Businesswomen's Association, and I met Jean Burdett. If you knew Jean Burdett, you know who I'm talking about. She was a character and a half, a strong-willed lady, and she taught me into coming to church here. And I thank her for it many, many times, and I miss her. But Marita's sermon, one of the very first ones I heard, was on taking responsibility for your own actions. And I was in a situation at the time where I was trying to dump the guilt on somebody else when it was mine. And that, I couldn't get it out of my head, that sermon he gave. And I finally confessed up to it, and we got things settled out, and it wasn't nearly as bad a situation as I thought it was going to be. But that sermon put me on the right road, and Jean helped keep me there. We had such good activities. Gil can tell you a story back there. We did several festivals here to raise money for the church, and this one was the Peach Festival. Doug bought us t-shirts that had peaches on them. And Gil came to help set up, and he called and he says, "Yes, ma'am, Sarge." I've been Sarge ever since. Gil's a very good friend. Now with, this disability, this Parkinson's, has slowed me down substantially, but I love coming back here. I love seeing the faces. This is my family now. My second family, actually I have 2 families. They're both on the same level. My biological family and this family. I don't know how to thank you all for being here when I needed you here and getting me here. But I love it. I'd like to do a few more, be more active, do some work a little harder, which I'm working on now, to do more, to get more involved. I wish I could sing, which I can't. I can't play music. I'm not a very good speaker, I don't think, but I can work. And I've never been afraid to do a little hard work. I thank you, Marita, for being here when I needed you.
you, everyone. It was an amazing service. I'm glad to be part of it. It's now time for the blessing of the gifts. If you'll say with me in your orders of service, the blessing of the gifts, and the baskets will be coming around. Today, I acknowledge God, omnipresent, as the source of all good, as the source of my good. With this acknowledgement, I accept His will, which is abundance in every aspect of my life. I release all thoughts of lack and limitation, and I am open and receptive to the increased flow of abundance to me right now. I joyfully accept the gifts of life and give freely of the special gift that I am. Through me, God omnipresent blesses and multiplies this gift for all. Thank you, dear God. We're going to have a little prayer basket coming around too with some slips of paper for people who've asked for prayer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks to our speakers this morning, and it was very, thank you so much for sharing. Sometimes people don't like to share their stories, but I've been around all of these people that spoke today, and I watched them grow along with myself. And when you can notice a change in yourself, that's a good thing. And Bob and I have had several conversations in the last week, and he said, I reacted differently a few weeks ago. So anyhow, it's, again, this church has just taught us so much, and I've said before, if it wasn't for this church, I don't know where I'd be. And Nancy always says I'd be in jail, but not quite sure I'd go quite that far. But anyhow, but again, thank you all for sharing, and we'll do this again. And it's just, like I said, this is our family, away from our other family. So, and we welcome the visitors today. We ask you to stay for lunch. Bob and his family have provided a thank you luncheon for us for taking care of him while he was had his little accident. So.
At least you didn't call me an old man this time.
When I do that. Anyhow, please join us next door for the luncheon. Everybody's invited, and even our visitors, so please come next door and eat. The flowers today are sponsored by Laurel. She wants to give them to Nancy in memory of her brother. So where Nancy took off to, but anyhow, we thank you for that. And the Healing Circle is this Thursday night at 6:30 with Nancy. Walking group starts at 8:30 on Saturday mornings at Black Dog Salvage. You had a message you wanted to give, Mary?
Thank you, Dan. I don't know if many of you realize I work part-time at the Rescue Mission. Most of you probably know the Rescue Mission is a homeless shelter downtown. We have an average of 300 men, women, and children staying there every night. Last year was our 70th anniversary. We're 71 years young now. And this July the 27th, and I'm going to leave this for you guys to put up and pass around, we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of our recovery program. It's called The Way Forward. And what it is a program to help men and women who are recovering from addictions, whether it be drugs, alcohol, gambling, whatever. And it's really transformed a lot of lives. So July 27th at the Berglund Performing Arts Center, Scott Mulvihill, some of you may recognize him. He's a young, amazing musician, songwriter, plays the bass. We'll have testimonies by men and women who have graduated from the program. And it'll just be a wonderful time and opportunity to help out. I also lead tours down there, and if you ever want information about the Rescue Mission, we're always looking for your prayers, for your donations, and there are plenty of volunteer opportunities. So I'll leave this with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion. Also, last week, some of you weren't here, but we had a little volunteer list. We decided that there are just little things that need to be done on a Sunday basis. Like one of them is somebody be responsible for locking the front door. We figured if everybody would have a little duty, they'd feel more like the church belonged to them maybe. So anyhow, I got a list, and Gil, I thank you so much for taking out the trash. That's a big help to me. I appreciate that. But these are just little tiny things. Like I said, one of them is making sure the front door is locked. The other one is making sure the the lights are turned off. So I'm going to take this list next door while you're eating, and so I'm going to aggravate you while you're over there. So anyhow, I just want, it's just a few little things that need to be done, but it keeps the board members from being here forever after church on Sundays, and other people too. I mean, I know Martha stays a lot of times and helps us, and it's just little things, but it takes time to get them done. So we ask you to just look at the list. Like I said, it's nothing major. So anyhow, also, Maria, you want to come up and make an announcement?
Thank you. Well, I want to announce and I want to share with you an absolutely spectacular thing that happened last week. There are a number of you who remember Brenda Kinsey. Some of you do not. She had a rather lengthy illness. She had cancer. But she was a dear woman, and she and her husband Joe came regularly to the church. She was a supporter of the church and enthusiastic about it, and it just was heavy on all of us who knew her, the length and the difficulty of her last illness. But I would go out to their house, which is in Daleville, and visit there, and I know that Velma did as well. And Jan, I'm sure you either sent cards or got in touch and expressed your sadness about her situation. At any rate, Brenda died. It's about 3 years now. And I would, from time to time, call Joe and ask him how he was doing. Well, actually, Brenda's mother outlived her. And then Nadine passed away. And she and Jen and Brenda had not, it had been this kind of a relationship between the two of them. But Nadine had her problems too. But at any rate, she passed. And Joe called me up and asked me if I would do the service. And I said, yes, I'd be glad to. And I did. And he was saying that Brenda was the only child from that union, from the union of her father and mother. And of course, everything from Nadine went to Brenda. But since Brenda had already passed away, everything then came to Joe. And he said, well, I'll be selling her house. And he said, I think I'll just call up Goodwill and have them come and take the furniture so that it'll be neat looking, and you can clean it up and so forth. And I spoke up and I said, oh, rather than giving the furniture to Goodwill, would you give it to Valley Community Church? We can sell it, and that way solve your problem and then add some to the coffers of the church. And he said, oh, sure, I'll do that. Well, I called Joe, maybe a month later, 6 weeks later, and I said, well, how's everything going? He said, I have a lot of stuff to do with this estate. And I said, oh, well, I hope everything's going well. And then, a couple of weeks ago, I called him up and said, how's everything going? And he said, it's going good. Things have gotten settled, but it seems that my sister wants to buy the house. And I said, oh, great, right in family. He said, yes, but she wants the furniture because she's going to rent the house. I said, oh, well, that's a solution to the problem. I thought, well, that was not going to work out. He said, but we will be making a donation to the church, because we didn't get a chance to sell the furniture. Oh, and I said, oh my goodness, I think that's a wonderful thing to do. Thank you so much. And I thought, well, maybe $200, $300, $500, that would be great. To make a long story longer, at the beginning of last week, he called me up and he said, "Can we get together and have lunch? And I wanted to give you this donation." I said, "Oh, that'd be great." And so we got together, he and his second wife now, Susan, a lovely lady, just a lovely person, got together and had lunch. And he said, "Do you think you could have some kind of a remembrance of some sort for Brenda?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so we're going to have a plaque in her honor. It will be on the back wall. And he said, well, and he started writing, and he said, "Should I make this out to you or the church?" And I said, "Oh, to the church, of course." So at any rate, he gave me a card and he gave me a check. And when I looked at the check, I almost fell off the chair, but it was for $10,000.
Wow. Wow.
Well, I have a letter that's going into the mail tomorrow, a thank you letter from all of us. And we will be getting together and deciding how best this can be used for the benefit of the church and for the benefit of us all. And so we're so grateful to Joe and Susan and to Brenda. God bless her. Thank you.
Yes, we're very, very grateful. Maria called me. I knew she was meeting with Joe, and she called me. I was on the way home. She said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "No, I'm driving. Do I need to stop?" And she said, "Probably." But anyhow, we're very grateful for that. And just so you know, the board does not spend money unwisely. So just because we have $10,000 doesn't mean that we're going to spend it right now. So our thoughts are, for the time being, we're going to put it in savings. It does give us some leeway for if we have an emergency now. We don't have to kind of panic when we have something going on and have to rush out and do a fundraiser. So
Divine scientists do not panic.
well, I used the wrong word. Then.
Yes,
Excuse
you
me.
did.
Well,
Yes, you will. You fix it.
This
Yeah.
computer person that couldn't fix the computer.
No, I wouldn't. I didn't.
Sit on there, be quiet.
We do not panic.
But anyhow, it does give us some leeway. We used to have a lot of money in the savings, and over the years it's dwindled down. So just so you know, we will not be just going out and just spending this $10,000. We will use it very wisely for whatever we may. And as of right now, the church doesn't really, there's nothing we really need as far as anything to operate the church, so we're very, very grateful. Yes, that you're patting that chair back there, and that is something we're thinking about. But we figure for a couple of things that we wanted to do, like we were talking about new chairs and maybe a new flooring for in there, but we can do the fundraisers for that, and our change has been coming in like a really good. So anyhow, we're going to, like I said, we'll hold on to the $10,000 until, we're not going to spend it today or tomorrow. So I just wanted everybody to know, just because we have it, it's not going to be, oh, well, we need this. No, we're not going to, it'll be a board decision, but we're not going to just rush out and spend the $10,000. So, but we're very grateful to Joe and to Brenda. Brenda was a very dear person, and, she just was a big part of this church for so many years, as was Jean and other people that have moved on to their next journey. So we're very grateful for all of them and all of you that come here every week and support us no matter what. I know some decisions we make aren't always the best for everybody. We can't please everybody. We do the best we can. We got to try to make some people happy today and some people happy tomorrow. But we are divine scientists, so we should be happy all the time. That's my thought. So let's say a prayer and go eat.
Don't have a closing in.
Oh, we were going to sing. Okay, all right. See, we're very flexible around here.
On that note, let's stand together and sing number 49, What a Wonderful World. How apropos.
What
please get in a circle? God, thank you for those that shared with us today. Their message struck at our hearts. This church changes lives. You change lives, Father. Thank you for the music. And as we go forward in the week, thank you for safety and love. Amen.
Amen.